All right, Bryan, let's talk some offense. Like we talked about before, it was a tale of two different halves in the Orange Bowl. And obviously, some of the keys that we have going on are going to be more sided to the second half of the Penn State game than it is going to be from the first half of the Penn State game. But rest assured, I'm sure everybody in the chat knows where we're going with point number one. If you guys have been watching this show all season long, you know where we're going. But Bryan, break it down for us, man. Key number one for the offense.
Got to start fast. I mean, it ties into the what we discussed earlier, right? With the overall team keys, with that win that first quarter, and starting fast in this game does two things that are very, very important. Number one is a fast start by the Notre Dame offense, which means to me getting points, if getting scores on two of your three first drives, and one of those has to be a touchdown, right? I mean that's going to be a key, is getting drives on two of your three first drives. You got to get points. And what does that do? Number one is it helps weather the storm of what your defense is going to be facing against Ohio State offense. So if Ohio State scores a decent amount early, then what that does is it helps you stay in the game. And we've talked about this a lot of times. I mean, sometimes no matter how good your defense is, Trev, you're going to come out in a game and your defense just is struggling to get up to the speed of the game. We talked about this within 2020 against that high octane North Carolina offense that had Sam Howell and Michael Carter and Javonte Williams and De'Ami Brown and Des Newsome and all those guys. And you know, they scored 14 points out of the gate. Boom, boom. And that came after Notre Dame started the game off with a punt on their first drive. But Notre Dame answered each score with a score. So they got two of their first three possessions, they got touchdowns. And then eventually your defense figures it out. I think North Carolina goes up 17-14, I believe, at one point in time, and then Notre Dame scores the next 17 points unanswered. But you were within striking distance early. And so it allows that too. But number two, a fast start puts Ohio State in a position it really hasn't been in all year, really since the Oregon game back in October, where a team can kind of come out and actually move the ball on them early. We haven't really seen that. Penn State a little bit did. They actually had a couple decent drives early, got a field goal on their second possession, first possession, they got a field goal. You know, so you're going to have to you know, you get that little seed of doubt in you. If you've done something all year and nobody's been able to do something, and all of a sudden they're doing something on you, it's like, oh man, what's going on right now? It can get you out of your game a little bit. And so I think those are the two big reasons why starting fast is early, on top of like the normal things, like it allows your players to get into a nice rhythm and all that kind of stuff. I think big picture, those are two huge things. So if your defense is struggling, you help keep them in the game. If your defense can come out and make some stops early, then that helps you to start putting some seeds of doubt into the minds of your opponent that, hey, listen, like this team came here to play, and it can get you out of your game a little bit. So, you know, not that Ohio State's going to panic, because number one, Ohio State's been down before this season. Number two, they know they can score quick if they need to, right? They've got some weapons. But if you put them into situations where they feel they have to score, that can also lead to some mistakes and lead to some turnovers, and that's how you put a team away. So I think a fast start in this game is incredibly important for all phases of the game, but especially for the Notre Dame offense.
To take it one step further as well, I mean, in order to have a fast start, Notre Dame is going to have to do things that eliminate moving yourself backwards on the first couple of drives, right? That is my 2 cents is don't do anything that moves you backwards, because we've talked about how much of a rhythm-based offense that they are. You know, start out hot in the first couple plays, and then before you know it, after a procedural penalty, after a holding call, they're staring down the barrel at 1st and 20 or 2nd and 15, and those are just absolute drive killers. You know, and so for me, that's huge. Can't do anything to move yourself backwards. Not taking any bad sacks, no turnovers on the first drive. Basically anything that nullifies starting
Don't
fast.
false start coming out of a drive, delay games.
Right.
Yeah, it worked out against Penn State, but again, this isn't Penn State.
And the only other thing that I'll add, once they start fast, and if they are able to start fast, stay fast. Start fast and stay fast, because earlier in the season, Notre Dame would score most of the time on their first possession. It was what happened afterwards.
Right.
After their first possession, it was, oh, cool, guys, we got a 7-0 lead and our defense is great. This isn't the team. This isn't the stage. This isn't the game to do that. And so if you're able to start fast, continue fast.
Yeah,
So
like I said, you need scores on at least two of your first three possessions, and one of them's got to be a touchdown. At least one of them's got to be a touchdown. If both are, great.
yeah.
Great. I mean, what you can't have is like you get three early scores and they're all field goals, and kind of like that Texas-Georgia game, right? Like, I mean, Texas completely outplayed Georgia in the first half of that game in the SEC championship. Completely
Yeah.
outplayed them. But they kept selling for field goals. And so, you come out in the second half and Georgia's got their backup quarterback in the game, and they start kind of moving the ball a little bit. It only took them one score to take a lead.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get touchdowns. Got to get touchdowns.
Yeah. Absolutely. Bryan, keeping the needle moving here. What is point number 2 for you in keys to victory for the offense?
The O-line has played a high level. I mean, that's about as big of a no-brainer and an obvious as anything. I don't know that you're going to beat Ohio State if your offensive line plays like it has at times in this postseason. I'm thinking second half against Indiana. I'm kind of thinking a chunk of the Georgia game, first half against Penn State. You've got to be at your best. You've got to come out and you've got to set the tone of this football game. You've got to come out, be physical. You've got to try to drive off the line. You've got to get a body on a body. You got to play disciplined football and thrive. I mean, look, we talked on the board last night. What I had been hearing is that Jagasol is going to start at left tackle and Rocco is going to start at right guard, and that Rocco might actually be in a better place than he was going into the Georgia and Penn State game, just, because of the way the injury, his body's starting to heal a little bit. And we'll see if that's true or not. But like now, all of a sudden, you just went from averaging about 306 pounds to almost 313 pounds. You went from having a 294-pound left tackle to a 328-pound left tackle. You should be able to kind of start leaning on Ohio State a little bit like you did last year, where Notre Dame was a much bigger offensive line last year than it was this year. The inside was basically the same. But last year you had a couple 320-pounders at tackle. This year you got a couple 290-pounders at tackle. And so you're going to have one 290-pounder at right tackle, but, you're going to have a big guy at left tackle. But you've got to come out and set the tone. We're going to know early, in my opinion. Like, we're going to know by the end of the first quarter what's going to happen in this game. We're going to have a pretty good idea if Notre Dame's got a shot to win this game by the end of the first quarter. And a big part of it is the offensive line is playing hard. And it may not even result in a lot of yards early, Trev, but you're going to be like, look, they're going to push. Like, they're just got to finish off a couple. Like, boy, if he just would have held that guy for a split second longer. And that was what was true about Penn State. And I'll talk more about that and sort of some plays here or key here, number 4. But you've got to come out and be physical. You've got to come out, get a body on a body. I love the potential of the offensive line that they're putting on the field with Jagasol left tackle. I mean, the reality is you just put your most physically gifted offensive lineman is now back in the lineup, right? And he's got his feet wet a little bit against Penn State. Now, it was at right guard, but he got his feet wet at Penn State. That was big. And now you hope he can build on that performance, but clean up some of the mistakes we saw him make against Penn State. Like, what's funny is the most punishing block he made in this game, he did completely the wrong thing, and it was a 4-yard loss. They were running a play to the right. Jagasol pulls and kicks to the left, just wipes out the linebacker, just wipes him out. And you're like, man, what a block. Too bad you did the wrong thing. You can't left tackle, those run throughs, those big mistakes can result in your quarterback getting hit from behind and he doesn't see it coming. And all of a sudden the other team's got the football. So you've got to come out and set the tone early. But with this line, it's a new look line to a degree. But the question now is, if Rocco's good to go, you're really only new at one spot. The concern is if you got Tosh at left tackle and Charles at right guard, yeah, that's what you did in the second half against Penn State, but this is still really only the first full game they've played together. So you worry about communication, you worry about, timing and all that. Now, if Rocco is good to go, which we think he will be, and he can actually play to the level we expected of him before the injury against Indiana, which is still a question mark to me. I need to see it. I know what I'm being told, but I need to see it. I need to see him coming off the line and he's able to drive off that foot. But if he is, then all of a sudden you've got 4 guys that have been together since September. Since the beginning of October, right? I mean, that's what you're going to see. No, I'm sorry, middle of October. This line had been together since the Navy game when Billy came back against Navy. And if you then throw Jagasol in there and he can play the way that we expect him to play and the way he played in the bowl game last year, then that's where you hope you have a chance to really go run the football. But it's not just that, too. You've got to also protect Riley Leonard. There are some opportunities to be had in the pass game. And I'll dive more into those here in a little bit, Trev. But at the end of the day, I know Denbrock's going to have some stuff designed up in the pass game. There's going to be some stuff schemed up in the pass game. But can you protect your quarterback, especially on third down, well enough to be able to execute those things in the pass game? They haven't always done that. Didn't do that very well against Indiana. Didn't do that very well at times against Penn State, especially in the first half. Second half, they gave Riley Leonard a little bit more time, and he ripped Penn State up with some big-time plays. You've got to be able to do the same in this game. Establish line of scrimmage is so important. Running the football, protecting the quarterback. Your O-line you. And if you're going to win a championship, you've got to look like O-line you. And that's I mean, I honestly thought about putting this number 1, but I was like, nah, we're not gonna go outside of what we normally do, right? We're gonna play our game, so to speak.
Love that.
We're gonna play our game too.
I love that. Be who you are. We're our authentic selves over here at Irish Breakdown. I love that. No, I love that, man. And you know what? You could make the argument that outside of Pat Coogan at center, this is what the starting offensive line should have been coming into week 1 anyways. You know what I mean? Like we're kind of getting that preview of what this was supposed to look like on August 31st. Yep. And so that's what gives you a little bit more hope for this game, And with that being said, look, nothing but respect for Tosh Baker and what he did and stepped in against Penn State. Nothing but respect for Anthony Knapp for the way that he battled throughout the season and how good he ended up being in the run game, right? Nothing but respect for Sam Pendleton, who was asked as a redshirt freshman to come in and start next to a true freshman. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, when the stakes are at its highest, all chips are on the board, you need your best 5 starting offensive linemen out there. And I believe that that's what they have right now with this lineup that's going out there. And so they're going to have to play well in both phases because a lack of push in the run game, really outside of the second drive again, well, Jeremiah Love's 98-yard touchdown run, the second scoring drive of that game. And for most of the second half against Penn State, the offensive line hasn't been able to generate that big of a push. Right. And so
that final drive against Georgia.
Yeah.
Those are the only periods we've seen them really. Mm-hmm. And but here's the thing to point to is the end of that second drive against Georgia or against Indiana when they scored to make it 14-0 and they're about to blow this game open. That's when Rocco got hurt. Mm-hmm. He got hurt a play before the touchdown.
Yeah.
And he tried to battle through it, and then they yanked him at halftime, understandably, because he just couldn't move. And that's when the offensive line really got out of its funk. And he hasn't been the same player since, and the offensive line has struggled a little bit. When they took him out and put Jagasaw in, now all of a sudden the offensive line looked good again because you had some beef up there, you had some fresh legs up there, and you started being able to move and push Penn State around. And then you saw it in the first 3 carries of the game, Trev. I mean, it went 6, 9, and 9. Yep. Like, all right, okay, they're back.
Yeah,
they're back.
And they're going to have to continue that. It's a lot of the story is, can you continue to build off of and maintain the momentum that you had in the second half of the Penn State game? So that it's going to be a common theme, at least for me, from my talking points that I have about this one, Brian. I'm willing to say that I'm sure you'll be in the same boat too, right? But moving this train along here, Brian, key number 3 for the offense. What do you got for us?
Well, I mean, I think a big thing now, Trev, is you've got to have some early down success. And this is not a team that you want to – Notre Dame is not a team where ideally you're playing in a lot of third and long situations. And you talked about earlier, you'd made a point about how Notre Dame would come out early in a game and get those early drives going. And when they're on script, it's like boom, 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 boom. They go right down and get points. When they didn't do that and when they would struggle early in games, especially when they get off script, is they'd find themselves in a lot of third and longs. You'd have a couple runs, one gets stuffed behind the line because somebody didn't execute correctly or somebody missed a block or, Riley gets sacked or Riley misses a read and guy drops the ball. I mean, we haven't seen drops be an issue here recently, but hopefully that kind of continues. But, you've got to be able to come out and have early down success. Because I look, it's a championship game. I have a feeling that anytime you get close to midfield, I don't care, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, you get into some 4th and 1s. We saw it last year against Ohio State. Marcus Freeman said, look, we're going to go for it on 4th and 1. And they did that twice and failed both times. And I made a comment then. I said, if Riley Leonard is Notre Dame's quarterback last year, they win that football game, because they may stop them once, they're not stopping them twice on 4th down. And so getting into those situations where this 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 is important, but you get there by getting into really having a lot of success on 1st and 2nd down. And the other part of that too, Trev, is when you get into those situations is you get into a 2nd and 1, you get into a 3rd and 1, you know you're a team that's willing to go for it on 4th down. And some of those 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1 opportunities, that's when you can take some shots, knowing that, hey, we're good to go here because we're in 4-down territory with the way that we are. So I think having early down success is huge. If you get into a situation, then where you've got to play a lot of 2nd and 10s and 3rd and 8s and 9s, this is not a defense you want to do that against, because this is not a defense you're going to have a lot of success against. Notre Dame ripped Penn State up on 3rd down. They converted a couple 3rd and longs. I mean, you think of the 3rd and 9 back shoulder to Jaden Greathouse. You think of the 3rd and 6 conversion, but a lot of those were 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, where you're able to kind of move the chains effectively, and that's going to be a big key here as well.
Yeah, to me, this just comes down to execution, right? For all the reasons that you just listed off. Why are you getting false starts? That's an execution thing. Can't be dropping footballs. Riley can't be making the wrong reads. All of those things to me are execution, right? Like very rarely, and I have not seen it yet this year, where Notre Dame comes out on offense and they're just overwhelmed by who they're playing on defense from an offensive play calling standpoint. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, man, just no matter what they try, they just can't move the ball. It's they start to move the ball, they shoot themselves in the foot. You're now behind the sticks. And I think that's what's been so frustrating about this offense at times. And that's what's different, right? Because we've talked about it all week long in preparation for this game. This is the first time in my Notre Dame fandom that I've been able to sit down and say, hey, Notre Dame can match up with this team from a coordinator standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint, from a personnel standpoint. And that's been the case all season long. And most situations, we take away that Notre Dame is just better. We said Notre Dame was better than Georgia. We said Notre Dame was better than Penn State from a personnel standpoint. Now it's just don't go out and do the things that put you behind the sticks. Don't go out and have those lapses in execution, because Ohio State is a really good team at capitalizing on other people's mistakes. A really good team. And Penn State was too. I mean, there's a reason Notre Dame went down 10-3 at halftime. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason why Penn State battled back and they hit a couple of plays where, Drake Bowen let a tight end go. That's an execution mistake, right? But offensive specific, go out and just execute on the first drive, right? And that's my whole thing. So it's going to be huge.
I'll say this. I think part of why both of these teams are here is because they're really good at making teams pay for mistakes. I mean, I think that's true of both of these teams. And that's why we talk about the turnover battle being so important. Well, why is the turnover battle important? Like, okay, everybody says it, but why? Why does it matter? And my whole point is, well, it depends on how good you are as a football team. If you're a good football team and people make mistakes, you're going to make them pay for it. I've pointed this out about a team that I coached, Trev, where I was on a team in Muhlenberg College, and we were a heck of a team that year. Made our first ever playoff appearance, first time in school history, winning 10 games. And I've talked about how we averaged 40 points a game, but we only averaged about 350 yards a game. Like 350 yards should have you barely scoring 30 points a game.
Sure.
The reason why is because we had a ton of short fields, but when we got short fields, man, special teams, we were scoring. I mean, we were going to score. And that's what great teams do. And that's what Ohio State has done a great job of this year, is when other teams make mistakes, they make you pay for it. And what Notre Dame has done all year is to make people pay, is to go at it and make people pay for it. And so Notre Dame can't put themselves behind, as you mentioned, because Ohio State will make you pay for it. And the same is true if we're doing a breakdown of the Ohio State offenses. Like you can't get into a lot of 3rd and 9s where Notre Dame, they know you're going to throw and everybody knows you're going to throw. That's when Notre Dame really hurts people. So it's going to be a big key.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for your 4th point for offensive keys to victory, it's a common theme that we've talked about all week, Bryan, but 4th key for you, what does this offense need to do to walk away and bring home a national championship?
You got to take advantage of the big play opportunities that are there. Trev, did you ever finally get around to watching that video breakdown that I did on the board the other day of the first quarter of the game? Is
the Penn State game?
The Penn State game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I pointed out 5 or 6 plays where you're like, "Oh my gosh, stuff was there." Like, and I'm not talking about, "Oh man, if you hand that ball off right there, it's an 8-yard gain." I'm talking about like if you make that block right there on the outside zone with Aeneas running the ball, he might house it. If Riley attacks properly and gets that pitch off against Abdul Carter, Jadarian Price is scoring from where they weren't even in midfield yet. They were in their own territory. He scores there. It's 2 Notre Dame blockers and 2 Penn State DBs. And as we've seen this year, you get Jadarian Price in space in that situation, it's a touchdown. The first drive where he throws the interception, 2 plays before that is when he's got Jaden Harrison wide open. If he catches the ball, it's 1st and 10 inside Penn State territory. If he makes one guy miss, it's a house call. The very next play was the speed option where if Riley's able to get that pitch off, Jadarian's scoring. There were 4 or 5 plays in the first half that you're like, if you execute that, not even, wow, if you could just have, if everyone could have done the perfect job, that's like every play call. If everybody, I'm just simply saying, dude, just get the ball out. And that's a touchdown. You are not going to get a lot of opportunities against a team like Ohio State to make those plays. And when they come, you've got to take advantage. Now, what changed in the second half? A lot of things changed in the second half. You were more physical at the line of scrimmage. You were, you were better on first down. There's a lot. But another thing is when you had those big play opportunities, you hit them. Riley had time to hit the sluggo to Aeneas Williams. You had a crease. You made that perimeter block on his next run, and he gets it down inside the 5-yard line. So you had more of those opportunities in the second half, and you hit those big plays. Guy falls down. Hey, if Riley doesn't see him, it doesn't matter. And Guy falls down because of Jaden Greathouse's juke move at the line of scrimmage. Just make sure we remind people of that. But when those opportunities are going to be there, 3rd and 9, you get a one-on-one, make that throw to Jaden Greathouse. Jaden, you got to make that play. There's going to be 6 or 7 opportunities in this game where you can hit big plays. And this game is, in my opinion, going to come down to a lot about big plays and who can make the most of them and who can limit the other one. Because I don't know that either one of these teams are capable of consistently just going on long, methodical drives against each other. I just don't see that being the way that this game is going to go. I think what's going to happen here is the team that wins this football game is going to be the team that hits the most big plays. And I think that was true in the Texas game as well. And limiting mistakes is going to be a part of it, but who can hit the big plays when you need them? And those 20+ yard chunk plays. Notre Dame will get their chance in this game to hit those plays. Can they hit them or not? One thing this offense has been really good at in these big games has been taking advantage of that early. You think of the Louisville game. They blew a coverage up the middle. Riley finds Jaden Greathouse wide open. Actually did that twice in the first quarter. There's the other one where he was scrambling and they turned Jake Greathouse loose and he throws it behind him for about a 20-yard gain. You think of the Indiana game. You just that one misfit by a lineman. The head coach is like, man, we set a bad run fit there. And I'm like, that's what makes this team so scary. If you have one bad misfit at linebacker, Jeremiah Love's going 98 yards. Right? Well, we fixed it after that, and they didn't have any other 98. Can't undo it. Can't unring that bell. And that's what this team has been great at. You make one mistake against this team, they're going to make you pay for it. Well, the other team you're playing is pretty good at that too.
Right.
But but Notre Dame can't afford to make those opportunities because I think this offense is, to me, more dangerous than that Penn State offense because, that offense had Tyler Warren. So, yeah, facing an elite weapon like Jeremiah Smith. Well, yeah, they kind of did last week against Tyler Warren. It's a different type of weapon, but it's still an elite weapon. You haven't faced a backfield like this. Yeah, you kind of have. It was last week against Penn State. They faced other really good backfields. What difference is about this team is, okay, they've got their star. Penn State has Jeremiah or Tyler Warren. Ohio State has Jeremiah Smith. They got their great backfield. Ohio State has their great backfield. The difference is it's not Amari Evans and Trey Wallace and guys like that now, Julian Fleming, guys like that now trying to make plays. It's Emeka Egbuka. It's Carnell Tate. It's Brandon Inniss now as those next weapons, right? So that's what makes this team is very dangerous. And so your defense is going to have to, we'll talk about that with the Notre Dame defense, but your offense has to be able to match some of those and maybe out big play them. And I hear a lot of stuff about Notre Dame hasn't been a big play offense this year. This is exactly what we talk about, Trev, with this. People assume that the only way to be a big play offense is to throw the ball. And I get really tired of that because there's a lot of different ways to be a big play offense. Well, for Notre Dame, it's been big plays in the run game. So you got to make those. But you also have to find some ways to maybe make some big plays in the pass game. Couple in the pass game as well. At the end of the day, when those opportunities come, you got to hit them. And so offensive line, you only need about 4 or 5 plays a game where you just block it up how it's supposed to get blocked up. When they did that against Georgia, they gashed Georgia, and they didn't do it enough. When they did that against Penn State, they gashed Penn State. When they did it against Indiana, they gashed Indiana. They've done that all year. And so when you look at this Notre Dame offense, you're going to have some opportunities to create big plays. When they come, you can't miss. Can't miss.
And my counter to that narrative too, Bryan, is Notre Dame became a big play offense in the passing game on the biggest stage that they had played on. Right? I mean, a 54-yard touchdown to tie the game where Jaden Greathouse makes 2 incredible moves in the open field, takes it in, game-tying touchdown. He had 7 receptions on 7 targets. Aeneas Williams, 5 receptions, 5 targets. Mitchell Evans was targeted 9 times, still brought in 5 receptions, and so it's in the moment that it matters. As fun as it would have been to watch them be a big play passing offense against Stanford and Virginia. And I mean, I'd rather have it in the Orange Bowl than on November 12th. It could just be me, but that's, that would be my counter to that. But absolutely. I mean, you go back and you look at the game from last year, different teams, right? Different coaches, different makeup of the teams. But the point still stands. Notre Dame didn't capitalize on those opportunities in the game last year. Needed 1 first down. And I've been saying this since last year that, Jared Parker gets a lot of flack for that screen pass call to Jadarian Price on 3rd down, I believe it was, and it stopped the clock, and understandable. But those are the plays where you go and you break down film and you look at that play. End of the day, those are the plays that as an offensive coordinator, they either label you a genius or label you an idiot. And the way that it turned out for Jared Parker, we kind of know how that ended up. But you go through and you look at it, offense wasn't able to get a first down. They had to go 10 yards to ice that game, and they couldn't. That's a significant moment. That's a big opportunity. Your defense got to stop on 4th down. 4th and 2 in the red zone, I think. Was it in the red zone or was it just outside of? What Notre Dame's defense when Egbuka went on like a jet sweep and they stuffed him on 4th down? Was that in the red zone or no?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Now that I think about it, I don't think that it was. But either way, your defense forces a turnover on downs late in the game. Offense needs to go 10 yards to help put that game.
You need 2 first downs.
Literally.
You got 1 from Audric first play. He goes, 12? You just need 1 more, and they couldn't do it. Yeah. And they took Audric out. I mean, that's the thing is this is why we say, dude, you got to ride your dudes. In this game, I promise you that if you get into that situation, that ball is going to Jeremiah or Jadarian. It's like, it just – or Riley.
I was just about to say, Riley, like we saw at the end of Penn State.
Right.
Which I think is a really good segue into the final point. Bryan, what's the last key that you have for us on offense?
Riley Leonard's got to play well. I mean, look, we've said a lot, Trev. We'll say it again. One more time. This is why you brought him here. Look, when I talk to people around the program back last December, you hear it and I'm like, this is what we feel as the missing link. Like, we love our quarterback room, but they're a year away, and I mean, I was even told back then, we're hoping this is our last trip to the portal. But their thought was, it wasn't just that we needed another quarterback, but they really felt like Riley Leonard was the guy. I've heard people say, well, they looked at Riley Leonard and Will Howard. I mean, they looked at several guys as if we don't get Riley Leonard, we'll turn to that guy. There's 4 or 5 guys they quote unquote looked at. From the beginning of the portal opening up, there was 1 quarterback that Notre Dame was going to focus on, and it was Riley Leonard. There was no him or Will Howard, we've got to make a decision. No, the decision was made. If this kid jumps in the portal, we're going after him. And they did, and they got him. It was a no-brainer. But you talk to people around the program, and it was like they knew they were going to be really good on defense this year. They felt that they were going to be a lot more explosive on offense this year, especially in the run game. I think people probably thought the pass game was going to be better than it turned out to be. A lot of that was because Riley was injured. But the thought was, this is the kind of playmaker quarterback that the program has been missing in those big moments. This coaching staff looks back at the second half against Clemson where you get 6 straight possessions where it's a 1-score game and you need to get points and you fail every time. You think of the Ohio State game and the 2 failed 4th downs, where your quarterback runs it both times. He doesn't get either one of them. That's not happening with Riley Leonard, a quarterback. And they really felt like this is what we're bringing this young man here to do, is to give us that playmaking ability at quarterback for us to go win a championship. And so you're going to need him to play that way. What does that look like? It means making smart decisions. It doesn't mean him being Superman where he's got to run around and, I'm going to ask him to be like John Elway. I was watching some highlights of John Elway a month or two ago, and there's a play where drops back, he flushes right, he flushes left, he flushes back right. He's probably 30 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He throws a freaking rope across the field to a guy for like a 30-yard gain. It's like an 80-yard throw in the air. It's insane. I'm not asking Riley Leonard to do that. Make smart decisions. Get the ball where it's supposed to go, right? Get the ball to your playmakers, run the offense. And then there's going to be about 7 or 8 times in this game where you got to go make a play. You got to make a defender miss on a sack attempt. And instead of it being, 3rd and 15, you get out of it, you throw the ball away, and it's 3rd and 7, you got another shot. There's going to be times when you've got a chance to go get this, move the sticks on a key drive. There's going to be some times where you've got to get that ball down the field to Jaden Greathouse in a one-on-one and let him make that play, or Mitchell Evans and let him go make that play. Those are the things that you kind of brought him here to do. Number one, run the offense, make good decisions, get the ball where it's supposed to go. But then when those playmaking opportunities come, you've got to be a playmaker. And if he plays well, I think Notre Dame wins this football game. If he doesn't play well, whether it's because he doesn't play well or the guys around him don't step up so him to play well, the result is the production will not be there for whatever reason. If Riley Leonard plays well and the numbers are there and he, then that means he's doing his thing and the guys around him are doing their thing. And I'm very curious to see if Notre Dame can actually build on what they did in the second half against Penn State, because not enough people are talking about that. 261 yards and 24 points against the Penn State defense that just doesn't give up that kind of production. And I think I looked in since the COVID year, Trevor, I think there's been twice, I think, that Penn State's given up more than 24 or more points in a half. It was the first half of the Big Ten title game this year, and then 2022 against that Ohio State offense. It's only 2 times in the last 4 or 5 seasons since the COVID year that anybody's done that to that defense. And they weren't doing it with short fields, right, until the last field goal drive. They were going up down the field on them. Can they continue that or not? I don't know. But Riley Leonard's going to be a big part of that. If he plays well, Notre Dame's going to win. If he doesn't, I think Ohio State wins.
Yeah, Riley Leonard's been the catalyst all season long, right? Especially in the postseason. And I said this in a show earlier this week, is Riley Leonard's been exactly who this team needs him to be in any game, right? Against Indiana, they just needed him to be just an athletic game manager. At some point where they were going to ask him to step up and make a play, and he did. But outside of that, it was, hey, facilitate the ball to your playmakers. Against Georgia, hey, run game's getting shut down. Riley, you got to go be a runner today. Yes, he passed for 90 yards, and that's the only thing people want to talk about. He rushed for 80 yards. 80. And then you go against Penn State. Hey, Riley, they're keying on you as a runner. Still go out and make plays, but we need you to push the ball down the field, and he did. Riley Leonard doesn't have to go be John Elway. He doesn't have to go be Johnny Manziel. He doesn't have to go be Lamar Jackson. Riley Leonard has to go be Riley Leonard. And if he's able to do that at the highest of his ability and he's the best version of himself, I really like Notre Dame's chances in this game, right? But in order for that to happen, I'm not even going to say it's a big if. We watch him do it for 3 straight postseason games. He does exactly what he needs to. My ask is, don't give me a heart attack and throw 2 interceptions, right? And don't put yourself in that spot. But at the end of the day, Riley is who he is, and who he is right now is 3-0 in the postseason. So that's good enough for me. So he just has to go be the best version of himself. So I agree 100%. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the offensive keys to victory. But don't go anywhere. We still have defense to cover, and we obviously still have the predictions and game balls to hand out. But before we get there, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and share this podcast with anybody that you know loves college football and Notre Dame as much as you do. And, of course, the best way to support what we do here at Irish Breakdown is subscribe to the premium message boards. We have a ton of great conversation going on. We have film breakdowns over there. We have some really great conversations going on with some really great people. So you can find that all at boards.irishbreakdown.com.